Welcome to a new episode on the Sad Crime Channel. Today's story takes place in Denver, Colorado in 2023. Angela was born on April 15, 1979, in Dodge City, Kansas. She grew up in a large family with 9 siblings. Her parents instilled traditional values in their children, emphasizing family and church. The siblings were very close, and their relationships were important to them. In her adult life, Angela was particularly close to her sister Toni. They shared a passion for traveling and enjoyed spending time together. They talked on the phone daily and regularly organized trips. Angela was very positive, loved animals, enjoyed reading, and was eager to take on creative projects, such as woodworking. She decided to pursue a future in creativity by studying interior design. Her biggest dream, however, was to have a large family. She married James Craig on December 18, 1999. Young James dreamed of becoming a doctor and consistently followed this path. As a result, in 2006, he earned a degree in dental surgery, and 2 years later, he became a professor, teaching at the same university where he had studied. James not only taught, but also worked in his profession, opening his own dental practices and founding an international student program to help foreign students obtain licenses to practice in the United States. His career dreams did not negatively affect his family plans. The couple had 6 children, 5 daughters, and 1 son. They lived in a suburb of Denver, Aurora, Colorado. Angela embraced the role of a mother with joy, and her friends agreed that she was born for it. Family and faith were her 2 most important values. Her life revolved around her children and active participation in the church community. She was a choir director, youth organization leader, and family history consultant. Close friends often called her a light, saying her presence could brighten any darkness. People loved Angela for her sense of humor and her infectious smile. She was full of empathy, intelligent, and generous. Her boundless energy and willingness to help anyone who asked set her apart. However, Angela wasn't an extrovert. She felt most comfortable among close friends and family, where she was open and fun. In unfamiliar settings, she became reserved and quiet. In 2023, Angela was 43 years old. She was a fulfilled mother of 6 children, aged 8 to 21, who adored her. She was beloved by the church community and celebrated life. Together with James, who continued to succeed professionally and actively participated in family and church life, they formed a wonderful family.
My name is Dr. Jim Craig, and I practice at Summerbrook Dental Group.
On March 6, 2023, Angela texted her husband, informing him that she wasn't feeling well. James asked if he should come home, but Angela said no, although she felt strange, dizzy, with slow eye movement and sluggish body reactions. James, being a doctor, asked if she felt weak when standing up. Angela responded that it felt as if she had taken strong medication, with everything moving slowly, like she was in thick gel, and her eyes had trouble focusing. She then mentioned feeling intoxicated. The couple exchanged several more messages, and when Angela said she felt as though she was having a stroke, James, concerned, rushed home from work and took her to the hospital. Despite her unusual symptoms, the doctor couldn't determine if Angela had a serious condition, and she was sent home the same day with reassurances that she would soon recover. However, her condition didn't improve in the following days, but she insisted James continue going to work. They remained in touch, with James checking on her regularly. James even mentioned consulting a fellow doctor who suggested her symptoms could indicate diabetes. Angela tried to stay positive, believing her issues might be due to a sinus infection. On March 8th, when Angela stopped responding to messages, James jokingly texted her, hoping she was asleep and not dead, then told her he would be leaving work soon, heading to the store and preparing dinner for her. Unfortunately, Angela's condition worsened the next day, leading her to return to the hospital. This time, her condition was serious enough for the doctor to admit her. A distraught James reached out to his friend's wife, Michelle, a PhD nurse, for help and support, as the doctors couldn't make a diagnosis. He described Angela's symptoms, including vomiting, weakness, and dangerously low blood pressure. Despite numerous blood tests, all results were normal. Autoimmune diseases and diabetes were also ruled out. His friend suggested further tests for the thyroid and adrenal glands, and even the possibility of a tumour. She was very involved and worried about Angela, asking James to keep her updated, though the news grew increasingly concerning. Angela's condition deteriorated, making it difficult for her to eat on her own. Despite extensive tests, the results were negative, and the doctors remained puzzled by her condition. James, in his conversations with the friend, commented that if it weren't for his wife being involved, this would have been a fun medical puzzle to solve, likely referring to their shared medical backgrounds. The couple remained in touch, and Angela thanked James for his care, feeling reassured that their children were under his protection when she couldn't care for them herself. However, her weakness and pain persisted, with no improvement. During James's visits, family members or church friends took care of the children. Everyone was deeply worried about Angela and offered the family immense support. Despite feeling very unwell and with no concrete diagnosis, she was discharged from the hospital on March 14th. Less than 24 hours later, Angela returned to the hospital, this time experiencing paralysis and severe dizziness. Her condition worsened drastically. Her brother and husband rushed to the hospital, but despite medical care, on March 15th, around 2 p.m., Angela suffered a seizure. On March 15th, Angela Craig was put on life support. 3 days later, she passed away, leaving behind 6 children. Her death was followed by shock, as on March 19th, the police arrested her husband James, accusing him of her death. This happened because people who noticed something suspicious came forward, and because Angela had confided in close friends that her seemingly perfect marriage wasn't as it appeared. It turns out that when Angela's condition became critical, James was still exchanging messages with his business partner's wife, Michelle. Michelle realized the seriousness of the situation and called her husband, Ryan. Together, they rushed to the hospital. On the way, Ryan, James's friend and business partner, received a strange phone call from Jacqueline, the coordinator of their dental clinic. She informed him that one of their employees suspected James of poisoning his wife. On March 6th, before Angela started feeling ill, James had come to work and mentioned that he had made a protein shake for his wife. He liked to emphasize how good a husband he was and that he prepared nutritious drinks for his wife before her workouts. That day, James told one of the employees that he had added an extra portion of protein because Angela hadn't slept well. Later, after returning home from her workout, Angela began feeling sick, experiencing nausea and dizziness. As her health worsened drastically, the employee, Caitlin, started to suspect something was wrong. She knew that things weren't going well in their marriage and that James had mentioned plans for a divorce. Lately, James had been more distant at work, often going out alone during lunch to cool off after arguing with his wife. Caitlin also noted that on March 6th, when Angela was first admitted to the hospital, James came to work in the evening. It was strange because his wife was very ill and he had no scheduled patients. Instead of going to his office, he used a computer in another room without even turning on the lights. Caitlin found this odd but didn't ask James any questions. After she left the office, she received a message from James informing her that a private package addressed to him would arrive at the clinic, and he requested that no one open it. The package arrived a few days later, but before Caitlin could intercept it, another employee had already opened it. Disturbed, Caitlin intended to reseal the box and deliver it to James's office, but she noticed a sticker indicating a biological hazard. Inside, one of the containers was labelled potassium cyanide. Caitlin assumed the substance had some dental application, resealed the package, and brought it to James's office. Later that same day, she saw James carrying the package. However, the unusual delivery stayed on her mind. She decided to read up on cyanide and its effects. To her horror, she discovered that it resembles sugar and can be deadly if ingested. Cyanide affects the entire body, particularly the central nervous system and cardiovascular system. She found that cyanide poisoning could cause symptoms like dizziness, nausea, vomiting, disorientation and anxiety, symptoms that matched Angela's condition. Furthermore, Caitlin revealed that after Angela was discharged from the hospital on March 14th, James told her that Angela had accused him of trying to poison her. When Caitlin learned on March 15th that Angela was back in the hospital and her condition was worsening, she decided to share her suspicions. She confided in Jacqueline, who took the matter seriously and called Ryan, who was already on his way to the hospital. Though the suspicions were about his longtime friend, Ryan couldn't ignore them. Upon arriving at the hospital, after speaking briefly with James, Ryan discreetly approached the medical staff, telling them he believed Angela was suffering from cyanide poisoning and that her husband might have administered it. At almost the same moment, a tearful James was informed by the doctors that Angela had suffered brain death. After Ryan and Michelle left the hospital, Ryan told his wife everything. In the meantime, James called Ryan, and Ryan admitted that he had told the nurse about the strange package James had ordered to the clinic. James began explaining that the package contained a ring he was going to surprise Angela with. When Ryan bluntly stated that the package definitely didn't contain any jewellery, James joked, saying Ryan couldn't possibly know since the package was sealed. Only then did James realise the package had been opened and that Ryan knew what was inside. James started backtracking, even claiming that Angela had asked him to order cyanide because, as a dentist, he was authorised to do so. Ryan eventually interrupted the conversation, telling James to stop making up stories and to start looking for a lawyer. He was right, as after Ryan shared his suspicions with the medical staff, the hospital personnel called the police, and an investigation began. On March 16th, James sent Ryan several messages. Here are some of them. Let me paint a picture for you of what this has done. Yesterday, I had to tell my kids their mum was not going to wake up, and they were there to say their final goodbyes. That was at 6:45 p.m. The hospital said we could bring the kids up to say goodbye at that time, but because of the investigation you opened by your incomplete information, the hospital made those poor, grieving, hysterical kids wait until after 10 to see their mum. After an hour or so of saying goodbye to her, we went home just before midnight, only to have our house sealed against our entry by the police. Instead of getting to go home and find comfort, they were met with flashing lights and cold, unfeeling cops, and the kids, scared and confused, had to go sleep at the home of a ward member. Family is starting to come into town today, and I have to tell them they can't come to my house and try to explain why. I have to hire a homicide attorney to make sure I don't end up being painted in the light that some hungry DA is anxious to paint me in, because I am most likely going to be charged, even though that is absolutely not what happened. Ryan, I understand why you did what you did. I do. I get it. But if you had come to me personally, man to man, instead of talking to everyone else about what you thought you knew, I might have let you in on some details that would have made you less likely to cause this horrible storm. Man, Ryan, if you had only put me higher on your list of priorities instead of putting everyone else's opinions and gossip ahead of me, for that I am very, very mad at you. I have talked to you about this multiple times, but you don't seem to care, and now what you thought was responsible has become reckless and so destructive. And so I'm asking, if there was ever any love in your heart for me, please don't make this any worse by talking to any officers or anyone else about this, unless you are legally forced to. And whoever else on the team you think is going to be questioned, I would ask that you privately ask them to honour this request too. Also, please do not respond to this text message until I text you again.
Mr. Morrow, is there anything else that we needed to address today from the people's perspective prior to setting our next court date in about 2 weeks?
No.
That same day, the police searched both James's home and his dental office. They secured the couple's phones, and Ryan handed over suspicious messages from James to the authorities. Ryan also shared details about James's financial troubles, noting that he had recently taken over the dental practice to save it from bankruptcy. At home, investigators found a computer, 2 bags of unidentified white powder, protein supplements, and a water bottle on a stationary bike. In the office, they confiscated the hard drive from the computer James had used on March 6th and found a handheld vacuum containing white powder in his office. James claimed that Angela had been suicidal in recent months and that he had personally revived her multiple times. He said her depression worsened after he told her about the divorce. Despite his medical background, James never took her to the hospital or therapy and never reported any attempts. He suggested to investigators that Angela had intentionally overdosed on opioids and another substance. James also claimed that he ordered the cyanide at Angela's request, and when asked if he was assisting her, he responded that he didn't expect her to actually use it. A social worker was sent to speak with the children, but they hadn't noticed any recent changes in their mother's behavior. It seemed unlikely to everyone that James was the only one aware of Angela's supposed tendencies. No one close to Angela knew of any depression she might have been struggling with. When the forensic team checked the computer seized from the office, they discovered that the last account logged in was under James's alias, Jim Craig, with an email address created on February 27, 2023. This convinced investigators that James was attempting to hide something, as he had created a new account to conceal his online activities. The user had searched for terms like, "How many grams of pure arsenic will kill a person?" and "Can arsenic be detected in an autopsy?" along with searches on undetectable poisons and lethal plants. They also found a February 27th Amazon purchase of arsenic. Records showed the package arrived on March 5th, just one day before Angela began feeling sick. Investigators also uncovered messages between James and a chemical distributor regarding the purchase of potassium cyanide. James claimed it was for an experimental craniofacial reconstruction and even promised to publish a paper on the experiment if it succeeded. The potassium cyanide was delivered on March 13th, the same day Caitlin saw the package. Additionally, on March 6th, another order was placed for a toxic chemical found in oleander plants, but it had not yet been shipped. Investigators also found messages between James and his mistress, which shocked them. While Angela was fighting for her life, James had purchased plane tickets for his mistress, Karen, an orthodontist from Texas, who visited Denver from March 8th to 10th. Karen was a married mother of two, and the pair had met at a conference and continued their affair. Detectives were now convinced that James had poisoned his wife to start a new life with Karen. Angela's sister and closest friend confirmed marital problems, noting in their messages and statements that the marriage was in serious trouble. However, it was Angela who was planning to leave James due to his long-standing addiction to adult films and multiple affairs throughout their marriage.
You've been labeled the mistress in this story.
Yeah, I don't like that label. If I had known what was true, I would not have been with this person.
In total, how long were you together with James Craig?
I want to say it lands right exactly at 3 weeks.
Do you think that James Craig allegedly poisoned his wife to clear the deck so he could be with you?
There's no way I'm motive. There's been no planning a future together. And then we texted until 4 a.m. that night. Then the next day we, spent pretty much the day together. Consistent from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. There was a lot of just feeling so connected.
Over the past 16 years, Angela repeatedly wanted to leave her husband, but he always managed to find a way to convince her to stay. Angela believed in his promises, or she wanted to believe. When James got into financial trouble, Angela often helped him at his dental office, since he couldn't afford to hire an employee at the time. This time, however, she had had enough. She confided to her sister that her husband had lost $2,000 in Las Vegas. It also came to light that James had previously administered some substances to his wife. He did this when he allegedly wanted to take his own life and wanted to ensure that no one would save him. Recent news indicates that Angela was once again willing to give her husband a chance. He seemed affectionate, caring and involved, as if he were preparing for someone to read these messages. However, with the secured evidence, it is now known that while he was sending his wife affectionate texts, he was spending time with his mistress. Karen's next visit was planned for March 16th to 20th, and James purchased the plane tickets on March 4th. Considering the scheduled delivery of arsenic on March 13th, investigators wonder if James assumed his wife would no longer be a problem by then. James also refused to consent to an autopsy, claiming that since the doctors couldn't determine what was wrong with his wife while she was alive, they shouldn't dissect her after her death. Officers are puzzled as to why, given that James was in love with another woman and his wife wanted to leave him, the couple didn't simply divorce. It then came to light that his wife had 3 separate life insurance policies, which, given her husband's financial troubles, could undoubtedly have been a motive for the crime. Testimonies allowed the establishment of several aspects of the case, ultimately leading to James's arrest. The arrest affidavit includes the following points. No one except James suggested that Angela had suicidal thoughts. The Department of Social Services, which heard this information only from him, believes that he is fabricating a story to mislead the case. James was communicating with a woman with whom he was likely having a sexual relationship and helped her organize a trip while his wife was dying in the hospital. The email used to search for and purchase poisons was only used in one of the rooms at the workplace. This email was used to purchase poison, which arrived at the house on March 4th. Angela fell ill on March 6th and was hospitalized with symptoms consistent with arsenic poisoning. She was discharged later that same day. James ordered oleandrin, which was intercepted and never delivered. On March 13th, a package arrived, and James instructed the office manager not to open it. It contained potassium cyanide. An unsuspecting co-worker opened the package. James regularly made protein shakes for his wife. Investigators believe the poison was in these shakes. During the search of the house and the dental office, no poisons were found. On March 23, 2023, James Craig, 46, was charged with first-degree murder in the death of his wife, Angela Craig, 43, who died on March 18, 2023, from lethal doses of cyanide and tetrahydrozoline, a decongestant found in over-the-counter eye drops.
Handcuffs and shackles, he was formally charged with first-degree murder. His wife Angela is believed to have been killed by poisoning. Earlier this week, we spoke with friends of the Craigs.
I definitely felt bad for the family. And when I heard what really happened, just like Karen described, it was a punch in the gut.
James is accused of a calculated conspiracy to slowly poison his wife, leading to her death. The official arrest statement contains 52 pages. It includes screenshots of all the messages exchanged between the spouses in the week before Angela's death and correspondence confirming the purchase of the poison. Photos of conversations with the mistress are not redacted. As a result, photos of the woman, her children, and even details about where she works appear on the internet. James is being held in custody without the possibility of bail and is prohibited from seeing his children. Journalists reach out to his mistress. The woman reveals that she met James at a dental conference held in February. At that time, she was going through a divorce from her husband, with whom she had been in a relationship for nearly 30 years. She had been seeing James for 3 weeks, but denies rumours that they were planning a future together. On June 28th, the court set bail at $10 million. In addition to first-degree murder, he is now also accused of attempting to persuade one of his daughters to tamper with physical evidence to facilitate the crime between March 18, 2023 and March 31, 2023. He is also accused of attempting to persuade a second person to cover up evidence. An additional charge stems from the testimony of a fellow inmate who claims that James told him about the charges he was facing and asked the inmate to place letters in his garage. The witness testified that the letters were written in prison and were meant to appear as if they were written by Angela. Their content was intended to confirm that Angela was unhappy with her life, had suicidal thoughts, and had learned about her husband's affair. The purpose of the entire scheme was to have the letters discovered by law enforcement or defense attorneys who would treat the notes as evidence supporting James's version of events. In exchange for placing the letters, the accused allegedly offered the inmate free dental care or bail money. The inmate did not accept the offer and contacted law enforcement. During the trial, the defense emphasizes that the inmate is an unreliable witness and violates their client's right to a fair trial. The lawyers also argue that there is no direct evidence that James added poison to his wife's shakes. The prosecution also highlights the financial motive. Angela's insurance policies were worth over $3 million, and James's bankruptcy filings show that his liabilities amounted to at least over $2 million, with uncertainty about other possible debts. The man pleads not guilty. The verdict in this case has not yet been reached. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe and take care.